What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Dream a Little, the podcast that's all about helping you feel confident about your kinks so you can share it with your significant other. This week's featured review is from Dan, who says, I've been an ABDL for years, but just found the podcast about a year ago. It's very informative and it's answered a lot of questions I've had myself. It's also helped me accept my fetish and not feel ashamed for doing what I love. Thank you so much, Lo. No, thank you, Dan, for the awesome review. You guys, I love checking in and reading all the nice comments you leave. It just makes my whole day. So if you want your review to be featured on next week's episode, go ahead and leave a review on iTunes and maybe I'll pick yours. Today, we have our first returning guest on the show. He was first featured on the show way back in episode number 31. Wow, here we are at episode number 101. But things have really changed a lot since then, not only for the podcast, but also for Max. Since we've known each other a couple years now, it's just amazing to see how far he's come from going, feeling insecure to becoming more self-aware and self-accepting. It's been just awesome. Our topic today is all about overcoming shame as an ABDL, and I think the biggest key to doing that is to talk about the things that we feel shameful about. Even this podcast has helped me overcome a lot of feelings of shame that I've had, because the one thing that shame needs to thrive is secrecy. But when you talk about things that you feel ashamed about, suddenly the shame loses its power. I know it sounds easier said than done, but today Max is going to share how a text message helped change his entire perception on his kink in the best way possible. I think you're going to really enjoy today's episode. If you still haven't told your partner about your kink because you just don't know how to go about it, go ahead and download my free 6 Steps to Coming Out Kinky guidebook. It will walk you through the entire process so you can become confident about your kinks and reduce the risk of your partner not understanding. You can get your hands on it by going to www.thelittlelounge.com/101. All right, I won't make you wait any longer. Let's just get started. Hey, Max, welcome back to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Lo. How are you?
I'm doing so good. For those who missed the last episode that you were on, can you kind of give a little background about yourself? Are you a switch? Are you a daddy? Little? What do you identify as?
I primarily identify as a daddy and as a DL at the same time.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So last time we talked, things were a lot different and they were going a lot different in your life. Can you tell me a little bit how things have changed recently?
Yeah, recently I have told both my current therapist and 2 of my best friends that I'm into ABDL, and the results have been nothing but positive.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so was your therapist the first person you ever opened up to who was vanilla?
Yeah, she was.
Okay, so were you seeing her or him for a while before you decided to kind of tell them, and were you really nervous?
Yeah, I've been seeing her for about 2 months, and that was probably the most nerve-wracking thing I've done in a long, long time. My heart was racing before I told her, and I figured that the way she could help me is by finding out the whole me, and that's a big part of my life. So she needed to know this side of me.
Yeah, I totally agree. So can we talk a little bit about how you brought it up? Did you just kind of blurt it out, or did she kind of coax it out of you?
I think I came into the day deciding that I was going to tell her, and it took a little bit of umming and awing and this is embarrassing, and I'm sure you don't hear this a lot, but yeah, I just told her, and she looked at me and she just said, that's fine. Everybody has something. And she's like, if you can't tell your therapist, who can you tell? And she was really accepting, and it was a huge weight off my shoulders.
Sounds like you had a huge turning point at that moment and you realized, it just kind of makes you feel better, right? It wasn't this crazy reaction that you were maybe thinking could happen. All these things you think might happen usually never do when you tell someone, right? Have you come to notice that?
Oh, yeah, for sure. You'd think in the worst possible way. You think, oh my God, she's going to call me a freak and kick me out of her office and blah, blah, blah. But she was like, okay, she's actually, the last time I went in, she did some research and she's trying to learn more about this side of things. So she's really been accepting.
Wow. Okay. So after she did a little research, did she have any insights to share with you about, the kink? Like, has she ever had another client who was into this sort of thing? Or are you the first that she's had?
I'm the first one that she's had. And while we're talking about, she's trying to gain a lot of information from me just so that in case she has someone in the future, she can understand this better. Like, I've shown her some like Bambino diapers and I've on the internet, and I've shown her just the whole this side of me and just been able to open up, and she's been like a sponge. It's been great both ways.
It's a good learning experience. And I know she says you're the first, but I feel like she might have some people who just don't have the courage to tell her, Maybe there are some people in the chair who, even though it's a therapist and it's a professional, it's still pretty nerve-wracking, especially for the very first time.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, it took me a long time to work up the courage to do it. And I'm sure if people aren't comfortable enough with themselves or this side of themselves, which is very common, then it's just something that never gets talked about.
Yeah. So what made you want to tell her in the first place?
Like I said, I just wanted her to know the whole side of me. I wanted her. This is a big part of my life. And if she didn't know this part of me, then it would have been hard for me to open up as openly as I could be with a therapist. And that's what you want to do with a therapist, is be as open as you can. And just because I wear diapers, that doesn't mean that I'm some sort of freak person. I'm just a normal guy who happens to enjoy this.
Yeah, totally. Was she the one who encouraged you to tell your friends about it, or was that kind of your own idea?
She said something a little bit, but I just decided that for the same reason. Me and the two friends that I told have been friends since college. We're really close. And I just decided, you know what? I'm sick of hiding this side of me. I don't care what people think anymore. This isn't something that I'm ashamed of like I was when I was like 18 or 19. This is something that I've accepted as part of my life. And if my friends can't accept this part of me, then maybe we need to go in a different direction. But I didn't tell them like everything like about the entire ABDL dynamic. I just told them that sometimes when I come home, instead of taking a bath or having a drink, I like to put on a diaper.
Yeah, okay. You make it sound so easy. Did it feel that easy just casually bringing it up?
It did not. It was not. It was about 6 text messages of, okay, I need to tell you something. And then like humming and hawing back and forth. And then I finally told them. And then they're just like, you know what? Whatever you want to do, it's going to take a lot more than this to break down our friendship.
Yes. And I think that's totally a good sign that you've got a great friendship going on. And I love that you mentioned like you didn't give them every single detail. You didn't go into depth of like the things that you like or like anything like that. You just wanted to get it off your chest. And I really like that, you don't have to spill all the beans to whoever you're telling. You could just tell them the main basics, right?
Yeah, exactly. I don't need to tell them about what I want as a daddy or what the insides of an AB is or anything like that. I mean, if they want to figure out more, then they can figure out more, or they can ask me if they're really interested. But I don't want to drag them into this world if they don't want to be in it.
Yeah. It seems like it's really good practice for telling someone that you might eventually date.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it's about the same. Yeah.
So when we last spoke, it seemed like you were kind of, feeling a little bit insecure about the kink, which is totally understandable. And I'm sure that affected how you were dating and the people that you were dating. So how has dating been going now that you are totally confident and secure?
It's been about the same. I mean, my mindset is different, but I've been talking with people on Instagram and stuff like that. Just obviously trying to gain friendships first, not just talking to them like, hey, do you want me to be your daddy? Because that never works.
No, I don't think it does. Very rarely.
No.
I don't think so. Yeah, I love that mindset. I love the mindset of just seeing what happens. I mean, that's what you do when you go on dates. You don't go on the very first date and say, hey, you want to marry me?
Yeah, exactly. You don't need to push things all the way. You don't need to push all the chips on the table the first time you talk to someone. I want to know what your interests are and what you do for work if you're interested in talking about that, or just learning about you as a person and not just a little or as a DL or an AV or things like that. I want to learn who you are as a human being.
I think it's really important to have that compatibility outside of kink. And, you have to share the same values because kink isn't a 24/7 thing. I've been in a dry spell with my fiance like this past month where I just have not been feeling kinky at all. And it's times like those where you need to feel like you really are connected in some outside way.
Yeah, for the 0.01% of people that are interested in doing this 24/7, then I guess then you'd be interested in nothing but talking about the ABDL side. But like you said, I mean, if you're going to be dating someone, you want to know what they're like, what their stances are on certain things, what they like to do, what they don't like to do. Just act like it's a normal relationship with a little kinky side dish.
Yeah, exactly. So you said you were sending them text messages, right?
Yeah.
And I love that because sometimes it is really hard and painfully awkward to say it out loud with someone else in the room. And I think that's a good stepping stone is telling someone through text. And that's actually how I kind of broke the ice with my fiance. It's a little bit different because, the goal there was for me to get him involved with something. With friends, you're just kind of telling them what's up. So when the time comes, well, I don't know. First of all, are you thinking about dating anyone vanilla, or are you kind of just canceling that out and trying to find someone who's already kinky themselves?
I've been thinking about that recently, and I think that for right now, I'm just trying to go for someone who's kinky because it's just easier that way than to try to explain this to somebody who might not be interested or might not be into it or might not be willing to participate. And for this, with this being such a big part of me, both the DL side and the daddy side, it would be just easier for me to be able to date inside the community.
I think so. It's definitely easier. I guess there are just different challenges because you're finding someone online. You could have to do kind of a long distance thing, which, has its own challenges and things like that. But it seems like it would just be a lot easier than trying to have someone you're already in love with and being very scared that they would reject this side of you. It's really hard.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. I mean, I've been in 2 previous relationships and I didn't tell them, and I was incredibly scared to because I really liked them both and I didn't want them to run away at the sight of me. So I was incredibly insecure with this side of myself. So
yeah, and to open up and have them reject you would it seems like it might backtrack all the progress you've made, But at the same time, sometimes you learn from rejection. Like when I was first rejected by my ex-boyfriend, it actually wasn't that bad. Like, I don't know, you learn from it and you grow from it, but it's still probably one of the most stressful situations I've ever been in my life. And plus, there are so many people online that you could potentially meet and get along with that, why not just try all the different options you have?
Yeah. And I mean, there's positives and negatives, like you said, to being rejected. I mean, you learn a lot about yourself and then at the same time, I mean, it hurts. It really hurts. So if you want to try to decrease the hurt factor, I guess you'd call it, then maybe dating in the community where people already know this side of you would help a little bit.
Yeah. So are you open to a long distance kind of relationship, or are you hoping to find someone who's local?
I am open to a long distance relationship.
Okay, that's great. I mean, ideally, of course, it would be nice to find someone in your area. But yeah. I mean, it's just a small sacrifice that you make to kind of have that distance between the two of you, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I've wanted this relationship for as long as I can remember. So if we live across the country from each other, that's a small compensation to make for being able to have a relationship that I've always wanted.
It's true because, even to this day, I got really lucky with my fiance because he allows me to kind of have these virtual play dates with other littles so I can get my mommy fix, because we have to compromise, right? Because he's not into ABDL. He doesn't want to wear ever. And he, but we make it work because we have a very unique dynamic where he's not afraid to let me play with other people. But that's not always the case for a lot of people in this community. Their partners are not going to be as open as he is. And then I feel like when you don't have that ability to do what you want in your relationship, that's when resentment starts to come in.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's even the same, like, say I love watching sports. And if my girlfriend was like, hey, you can't watch sports on these days, then there'd be some resentment there. And that's a big part of my life. And so is the DL side of my life. And if someone said, hey, I'm not willing to compromise on this, then that would be very tough.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you just want to be yourself when it comes to it in a relationship. And you want to feel like you can do that without being judged. And it's just such an important part that I feel like a lot of people overlook, and they lie to themselves a little bit and tell themselves, oh, I don't need that. I'm okay without that. But it's like these urges have always been around and they're always going to come back.
Yeah, you're going to feel like that for about a week. And then you're going to be chomping at the bit to wear again or drink from a bottle again. Or like I've had really strong daddy feels for the last month. So I've been trying to post a ton of content because the feelings are just hitting me really hard. And it's not something that you can just push away forever. It's impossible.
Yeah, totally. So have you been experiencing any of like the binge and purge cycle that I know a lot of us have been through with having this kink?
I don't think so. I think that the more I've accepted myself as of late, the more if I'm not feeling it, then I just don't do it. But it's not something that I'm just like, okay, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. This is just like, it's like, okay, for a couple of days, I might cool down on it, but then I'll just do it at my own leisure when I'm feeling comfortable about it.
Yeah, I think that's the main difference is like when I used to go through that binge and purge cycle, it's like you try to convince yourself that you're going to quit for good. And when you accept that it's a part of you, you're just like, look, it's like when you're not horny. You're just like, I'm just not in the mood right now. I'm going to go eat a sandwich and then I'm going to like just go about my day, you know? And you don't beat yourself up about it. And I hope that anyone listening right now will not get into that negative thinking cycle where we can be our own worst critics sometimes, especially when you're alone in this kink, I feel like. And when you talk about it, when you talk about what you're ashamed about and you share it with your friends, like that shame it just starts to get smaller and smaller and smaller. And you don't feel like you need to live the secret life where you have to keep it all inside. It's really powerful, isn't it? Just texting someone could like bring that much joy and like just help you feel better.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine telling 3 people would make my life so much easier.
Yeah, that is amazing. And I'm so glad that you came on the show to share that. Do you have any advice for people who are maybe thinking about opening up to a friend, but they're just not sure if it's worth it? Like, what are the signs to look for? How do you know you can trust someone?
You just got to feel comfortable with them. I mean, if you've been friends with them for a while, and me and my friends, we have kind of an interesting sense of humor. So we talk about all different kinds of stuff. So there's not really a lot that's off limits. So, I mean, if you feel comfortable with it, you're a pretty good judge of yourself. It's not like you're going to tell your friend that you think can handle it and they're going to go 180 degrees different direction on it. I mean, if you think your friend can handle it, you're a good judge of character. So you should be able to understand that, hey, if I tell them, then they should be able to do this and not just blindly tell them and hope that they'll be okay with it. Just read your friends and understand what you guys like to talk about and how comfortable they are with you.
100%. I love that. Well, how can people find you on social media?
I'm honestly really only on Instagram, and I'm at That Daddy Fellow is my Instagram, and I try to post content pretty regularly on there. And yeah, basically that's the only where I am is Instagram.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, Max. I really enjoyed getting to chat with you, and it's just so awesome to like not only hear about your transformation, but like I feel it. Like I feel like you're so much happier and confident, and I'm just so happy for you.
Yeah, thanks so much. It was great being on here to chat with you again.
Yeah, of course. I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, bye.
Bye.